Okay, today on the podcast, I'm joined by an actor, writer, a musician, and the producer of Impractical Jokers, Mr. Casey Jost. How are you doing today, sir?
Good. Thanks so much for having me. This is so fun.
Yeah, welcome to Ireland.
Yeah, it's just as beautiful as I thought it was, and it really feels like home.
It's raining at the moment.
Oh,
I
really?
don't, I don't know if you can hear because I'm in a conservatory with a glass roof, so I can just hear rain pelting down. Maybe you
I.
can't hear it.
It's very. I mean, I like that idea. It's. I feel like I'm in therapy right now. Just it's like relaxing. I'm at the spa or something. It's nice.
Have you ever been over here?
No, I've really always wanted to, and I want to take my mom because my mom's last name, like my family last name is Kelly, and
Oh,
uh,
really?
and we're from Cork originally.
Okay.
County Cork. So I'd like to go there eventually. Maybe bring my mom.
I'm always surprised when I talk to people from America because they all, like a lot of people I've talked to, seem to have like a family connection to Ireland. So I can add you to that list as well.
Yeah, I don't know how many people we know from there. We've we're like I think I'm like fourth generation Staten Islander. So my grandfather's father was born on Staten Island, and I think his father came from Ireland, from County Cork. But that's we have no idea who's still there from our family lineage.
You have to do one of those family tree
I
things.
know. I don't want to give them
And
my DNA, but I think I'd like to find out.
it'd be a good excuse to get over here for a few cold beers anyway.
That would be great. Yeah,
I don't know if you heard, but we like our beers over here.
oh no, that is a stereotype that I adhere to. I like it.
Yeah,
I don't mind
it's the
when
truth.
people assume.
So your background before Impractical Jokers, what kind of stuff did you do?
So I did a lot of like right before Impractical Jokers, like leading up to it. I was doing a lot of stand up and improv comedy, and I had a friend that was doing a live show, and I used to write bits for that show, like that he and I would do.
Yeah.
And on that show, Sal Volcano, who was a friend of mine, who was a bartender at a local bar, and we would always talk about comedy, and he was in his own comedy group, the Tenderloins, but we just hit it off, and we just liked working together. So that's like kind of what happened before getting onto Impractical Jokers. But in my own right too, I was writing for 6 months. I got a job writing for Jimmy Fallon on the Late Night with
Oh,
Jimmy
cool.
Fallon. So that was like my first big gig. And then Sal was the best. He was like so supportive about that whole thing and was really happy for me. And then when I got let go, which is just part of some jobs sometimes, especially a job like that where they just cycle through people, he was gearing up for his own show, which was small on a small little network. He was even at the time when he made the pilot, he was telling me like MTV likes it and so does this network called True TV, but
Hmm.
MTV wants to replace us with a whole new cast. They don't want it to be the four of us. They want it to be like I don't know, like a different cast every week of like probably younger people because they were 35 when the show got picked up.
Yeah.
So then they were like, so we're going to go with True TV. We'll just see what happens. And it wasn't a comedy network really at the time. So they went with it, and it was just a very good decision. But he was like, come work on the show. It's a small show. We can't pay you much, and you have to like pick up a van and pick up coffee for people. But it'll be fun. We get to work together, and so I went for it.
And like, is it fair to say that that's probably the biggest show that's ever been on True TV now?
Yeah, I think it just has like kind of taken over as the main show, like the main. It is the network at this point, which is
Yeah.
I never imagined because between season 1 and 2, we didn't know if we would get picked up for more. There was a time that we were nervous every season, towards the end of every season. But by the time we got to like season 5 or 6, or I was just like, oh, it's guaranteed we're going to get another season. It's just
Yeah.
guaranteed. I felt guaranteed, and I'm at a point now where we're in season 9, and I think we're going to do season 10. Like it seems like it's greenlit, but I'm like, I don't want this ride to end because, and I think for a lot of reasons they might just be like, 10 seasons is a lot. Let's stop. Which I respect as well, like the decision of either the guys or because they've been doing it for so long. But
Yeah.
I mean, part of me is just I'd like to keep going. There's so many shows that like are institutions that just go for like look at South Park or Saturday Night Live. These shows just keep going and they just evolve. and I
A
hope we
lot of
can.
pe a lot of people may have thought that the movie could have been the last hurrah, but obviously, if you're going into another season, that's not the case then.
No, no. Yeah, the movie was something they always wanted to do just because I think like the guys really get, and and I think everybody does, but the guys love the idea of big spectacle, like big moments in their career, like playing
Hmm.
MSG, playing Madison Square Garden, or touring, like out of the country, or touring the country even, but like leaving, like when they played the O2. Like they have these defining moments, and a movie was definitely one of them. And so to really just to kind of to have that notch on their belt was the most important thing. And they would probably do another one if it came about, but for the most part, it was really just another, I don't know, another stop on the highway.
Yeah, because I was going to say about the movie that it fell kind of unfortunately where we are in the world, like, and it kind of missed that kind of, I suppose, premiere and box office around the world, which is a big shame. So I think that's another reason to get another movie on the go.
Yeah, that would be great. They
Yeah.
did. We definitely did a premiere. Like they did like the New York one, and they went around, and it was amazing. It was probably one of the last movies before things closed down that was in
Yeah.
the theaters. And it had a pretty good run, and it got continued. Like it got the green light to stay in the theater a little longer, which I guess is a metric. But then it almost worked out well because then when it went on HBO Max, it was like a whole new audience was seeing it again, and it happened so quickly that there was a big anticipation for both, and I think they've technically have done well because of those reasons. So I mean, it's a silver lining in terms of the that whole situation.
Over here, we get the show on satellite from England, from the UK, from Sky, which is on Comedy Central. So it's on here. It's on quite a bit. Maybe there's 6 to 8 episodes on per day. But the one thing that I don't like about it is when I watch you guys, if I look you up online and watch you on different streams and stuff, I get the American version of the show. But over here, even after the watershed, everything is still censored.
Really? So,
Yeah,
oh, okay. I mean, we censor a good amount, and like new things get are uncensored, like saying, I don't know if I could curse on this.
you can say whatever you
Okay.
want.
So saying things like shit or the middle finger doesn't get blurred anymore. But
Hmm.
now they're also blurring cigarettes. Like they're going back and blurring anytime or cutting out anytime we see a person with a cigarette, including maybe an entire punishment where Murr had to take cigarettes out of people's mouth. So I don't know how they got around that one. So it's interesting how the rules change, especially since we've been around for almost 10 years or 10 years. So it's it's interesting to see like how things ebb and flow. Because early on we couldn't say shit, but now you can. But I guess you can't
Yeah.
still can't on Comedy Central
Whatever,
UK.
the world is kind of not as it was maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and you can't, I suppose, seemingly you can't get away with what you could get away with back then, and even in terms of cursing, and you, like you said, a simple task like taking cigarettes out of someone's mouth, but obviously they don't want people smoking, so they can't, I
Yeah.
suppose, glamorize it and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, even though that bit is he's taking it out and telling
Mm.
people, that it's not good for them. Like the act of
Yeah,
it, just showing it on TV, I guess, is they're just really trying to
that
you know.
that scene really pissed a lot of people off, it seems.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I would never want to do
Yeah,
that. In the history of punishments, that's one that I would really have trouble doing. I feel like
yeah,
you're gonna
because
get jacked in the face.
yeah, you're dealing with people maybe on their lunch breaks from work and stuff like that, and you're going up harassing them.
Yeah, definitely.
What's an average day like on set there?
It's pretty fun. It's a the crew now is family, so it's like seeing your good friends and family. So you show up and it doesn't feel like work. You get there, the guys get there sort of, I wouldn't say last, but of the order of people that come, it's like, the PAs and the, kind of gaffer or whatever, that kind of role, and the camera people load in first. They set up cameras, they run cables, all that stuff happens. And then, art department and some other, actually, art department probably gets there first too. And then the other producers and things like trickle in, help out if they need be. And then the guys show up not too long after. We talk about the creative of the show. And then, they usually probably do the intro to the bit, and then they film it. Once in a while, we sometimes do the intro actually at the end, just because if we're nervous that like they might get spotted by
Yes.
people, we save it to the end because it doesn't really change it. And it even sometimes like we're so open to what will happen in the show that the guys are like, well, this might change a little bit, so we'll wait until the end in case we have to tweak, rather than do it again. Save time. But that's it. Like they get there and we're talking about creative, like they get lunch, like they've already put in an order for lunch and they eat. It's nice. It's like it's a pretty sweet gig, and then you have to take cigarettes out of someone's mouth, so it quickly becomes uncomfortable.
Who do you think is the most naturally funny Joker? The one that is just funny without trying to be funny.
Oh man, I don't know. I think sometimes I think like for what you just asked, there's something about Q that is just like he just talks and the things he says are funny.
Yeah.
I don't know. I do feel that way about all four of them to some degree. Like Sal can't help but just think words that come out of his mouth are just funny, and he even just in conversation sometimes he'll say a word, or like he'll say like he was telling me a story about like a cop that gave him a ticket and that was unfair, and he was like, I went to the courthouse just to besmirch his name, and he like earnestly meant besmirch his name, like the word besmirch. You never hear someone use it. And
I tell you where he learned that. Sal and Q are massive wrestling fans, and one of the wrestlers is actually from the UK. William Regal used to say,
yeah,
"Don't besmirch me," and I think that's where he got it.
that makes sense. I remember William Regal. Wow.
Yeah,
Besmirch, yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah, because
yeah,
he even said afterward, he was like, I don't know why I used that word, but I'm going to tell him now.
yeah,
I'm going to remind him. But yeah, like they all have this, and obviously like Joe and Murr have like uncanny abilities to just be funny, or just like with Murr, you just like they put him in scenarios where like he squirms, and so you squirm watching it, and Joe is just fall down funny sometimes. So it's like. It's hard. It's hard. I basically gave you a bad answer because I said all four of them, but
you can't be seen to be picking favorites though either.
no, I always say no. I always pick Sal's my favorite Joker because I've
Yeah,
known him the longest. He brought me on the show, so I gotta. That's territorial. So I'm always going to be
yeah.
Team Sal. When people ask me what team, always diehard Team Sal.
Well, whilst we were talking about wrestling, this is kind of this podcast was based around. I interview like different wrestlers from around the world, some famous, some independent, and things like
So
that.
it's perfect that you got me.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
let's talk about wrestling then. I didn't know you were a
beautiful.
wrestling fan.
Oh yeah, big time since I was a kid, and I've always kind of come in and out. So I always think like everybody, like I always kind of give it up for the people who are diehard, but I love it. I mean, I'm into the whole thing. I mean, growing up, it was just the thing that me and my cousin loved to watch, and we're obsessed with the games. Like every one that came out on N64. I mean, I still play it. Just the other day, I was playing No Mercy,
Lovely.
and it's just the best game. And I just kind of discovered, I should have known this, but they made like all these ROM hacks. Like these new versions of the game where they update the roster, or they use they use the same what's the word for it, engine of the
Yeah.
game, and they put all like classic wrestlers or wrestlers that weren't in it, or like ECW. Like it's really cool. I want to get my hands on them and try them.
Have you been watching much wrestling these days?
I watched Mania, and I always
Yeah.
try to like watch like leading up to it. Yeah, this last year was kind of tough, obviously.
I find it's very hard to engage with it with no audience. I think the audience is so important to something like wrestling.
I know it's like a blanket. You watch like you're kind of seeing it through their eyes,
Yeah.
so it is really important. It's just the way it looks. So it's like imagine like watching your favorite show where the location is so like let's say it's like The Office, and then
Yeah.
like an entire episode there's no office. You know what I mean? You're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is not my show anymore. Like you're taking out an element. The way it looked was this audience, and now they're not there. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah. It was refreshing to see a crowd at WrestleMania, but I'd still prefer it for one night, not two nights.
I agree. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
two
Because
is. Yeah.
we were up, like when we were watching it here in Ireland, we were up till 4 or 5 a.m. having a few beers, and then again the next night. Tough going.
I know that is tough. I mean, it does sound fun though. When you just
Yeah.
described it, I was like, wow, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. What I normally do, I set up this podcast 6 months ago. But
Yeah.
before that, I do DJing in rock bars and I
Okay.
do events for WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, and Survivor Series, the big four in Dublin, Ireland. So what we do is we get about 50 to 100 people, go to a bar in Dublin city centre, stay till 4 or 5 in the morning, drinking, watching wrestling. It's great.
That's fun.
So we've been missing that, unfortunately, the last year.
Yeah, the best manias were the ones I watched with like my friends at like a sleepover,
Yeah.
and it sounds like you're recreating that. It sounds
Recreating
like
it just with a load of drunken
yeah,
adults,
yeah. We were drinking a lot of soda, so it was getting pretty wild too. But you know, testing our bladder boundaries. But
Yeah.
yeah, I loved that. You know, like breaking out the wrestling pillows and uh, just like
Figures.
staying up, maybe watching some scrambled porn. Yeah, those were the days, I guess.
Yeah. In terms of the show, do you guys have many problems now with people noticing the guys? Because it's at the stage now where like the guys are like they're A plus nearly celebrities at this stage. So do you ever think about maybe moving it maybe to somewhere that they're not known, different countries, stuff like that? Have you thought about anything like that? I know you've done a few shows in England.
Yeah, it's actually harder when we leave New York, believe it or
Okay.
not. Like when we go to, you know, I think when we filmed some like a Texas or Texas was pretty early on. So if we went back now, I think it would be even harder. But when we
Yeah.
went to Miami or, you know, Universal Studios or anytime they like, you know, leave New York, and
Yeah.
like the tri-state area, it seems, or it's like a big city, there more people know it. Like the suburbs is where our ratings kind of come from, and New York just has so many people, and so many
Yeah.
people just watch, you know, streaming, or they don't have cable, or whatever it is. Like it'll be interesting to see what happens because now it is on like HBO Max, but there's just so much out there that it's really it's not. I mean, there's plenty of huge shows that I've never seen, and I think it's the same thing with Jokers. But it is a challenge. But you know, usually like somebody comes along, you could tell that they kind of recognize the guy or they know the show, they say hi or whatever, and they keep going, and
Yeah.
then the next person who comes, just you know, and they don't, and you know, you could kind of tell, or maybe even sometimes afterwards they go, "Oh, I thought you looked familiar, but since you didn't have the other three guys." You know, I used to film sometimes in the mall, you know, for like we do a show. I don't know if the UK gets it, inside jokes where,
No, I've
yeah,
seen it online, but
yeah.
I don't think it's aired over here.
So sometimes I go to the mall and I interview people about the show, like little games, just as like an interstitial segment in between
Yeah.
things. It was an idea that the guys had that was fun, and I'd go to the mall and you'd set up a sign with the photos of the guys, and some people would just flock over and be like, "I know the show. Can I, you know, like, can I be on the game?" And we do it. And some people like, you know, would see it and be like, "Oh, I know the show. I know the show." And then you'd ask them questions, and they don't even know the names of the guys. You
Okay.
know, so I think like it's just there's a range of people that even if they kind of know, they don't realize what's happening, and then afterward they go, "I've heard of that show," but they didn't really know. So that happens sometimes, and of course there's people who just don't know it at all and don't
Yeah.
and like read books.
I never thought of it in the with the way you said it, like with New York being so big and a lot of people passing through, maybe,
There's just
and
so much. Yeah, there's just so many
yeah,
more people. Yeah,
yeah.
so even if you get five people in the row that know the show, that sixth person is all we need. You know, so.
Is there anything that comes to mind that went horribly wrong, or like even something that was horribly funny? Like,
I mean, there's definitely bits that have just failed. Like
yeah,
where we were there all day, we filmed, every guy had a turn. Like there was one recently where we went to the park and there's like a big group. Like I think I was in a big group of farmers and we're running towards Q with like pitchforks. And
yeah,
we're, you know, and we filmed a lot that day, but it was just too jokey. And it wasn't like, it was funny, but like for the wrong reasons. And nobody believed it. Every time we ran up for like whatever, it would change every time, like the mob. And the people were like, this is a farce. Like even if they
yeah,
didn't know the show, they were like, what even is this? And so like that happens sometimes. Like there were ones that even made air. Like there was a challenge we did called like Are You Beth, where they just have to find someone named Beth, and
Ooh, tough.
like yeah, it was just so dumb. But it's sometimes fun about that. Oh, a bad one was once we had a bit where, and it's like an awkward thing to do is, I think Joe went to a children's park with no child. And immediately we walked in there and every parent was like, who is this guy? Like immediately they were like, they gave us what we wanted, but it was too intense. So like when they started telling Joe what to say and do, he couldn't do it. But it was at a time that we didn't, it was supposed to be a challenge and all four guys were supposed to go. And we should have just turned that into a punishment right there, you know?
Yeah.
But it was just at an early time where it was like the first season. It was like one of like the first 15 bits. Like that was one of the first things they wanted to do. But it was so impossible that we couldn't get enough. And we knew that these people were not going to sign a release. It was early on. And like the network was like, we need to get releases. We don't want to blur faces. But I love a blur. Every now and again, I love seeing a blur because it makes it feel real. Which it is. And so like it reminds you that, oh, sometimes people are like, do not like this show. And it's nice. So I always like to, I prefer for people to sign because getting that reaction is better. But once in a while you see a blurred face and you're like, okay, this is going to be good.
Yeah. I remember the one where Joe was in, it was like a children's play area, and he was telling the mother, oh, you should look after that kid or whatever. And that was a tough one as well.
Yes.
You know, I think anything with children, like, is very tough. Like,
Totally. Yeah, I love that stuff.
what do you think is the funniest moment you've ever seen on the show?
Wow. You know, there was a time like where I was there for when Murr had the Novocaine in his mouth. And that to me was so funny. I loved it. We were losing our mind that it worked as well as it did. We were like hoped that the Novocaine would work because we were just like, let's see what happens if we put Novocaine in Murr's mouth. And it was like the response was so good and the guys were laughing so hard that it was killing me. I was dying. And so up until that point, that was the hardest. But since then, I've definitely laughed a lot.
My favorites offhand would be Joe washing the cars in the bikini, and Murr's prostate exam was kind of
Yes.
out there as well, you know?
Yes. Those are both very, very fun, insane things. There's other ones like there's just like, the thing though, I love like Sal punishments, but the only thing it takes away is like Sal being in BTS and laughing and, falling down laughing. Like watching Sal like something is why this show is so good in some moments. You like the idea itself is funny, but watching Sal think it's funny makes it so much funnier. He's just got a face that like when you see him smile, it makes you smile. It's like, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and it's the same way with all three guys. Like, and when Sal is out there and watching him squirm or break laughing, what's a really funny bit that I watched recently? It's when Sal had to kiss a guy's abs in the park.
Yeah.
And his task was to kiss a guy's abs. And the guy like doesn't really speak English too well. So he's like, he has to explain it. He's just like, can I kiss your abs? And he like points to everything. It's really funny if you haven't seen it. So
I don't think I've seen that, no.
Oh, it's on YouTube. Like just type in Sal, Joker, Impractical Jokers abs, kiss abs. Yeah. It's a beautiful clip. It's really funny. And he has a line at the end. I don't want to spoil it, but he has a line at the end that like I'm thinking of now. That's just like a good quintessential Sal line.
I'll have to check that up after this.
Yeah, enjoy it.
Talk to me about your YouTube channel and the music that you do on it and the little skits you do on it.
Yeah, so it's kind of all over the place. I as a musician,
it's random.
Yeah, very much. I don't set out to be like a YouTuber.
Yeah.
I should, but I don't have the focus or something, or I'm working on the show so much that sometimes it's tough for me to like put in the time that it takes to cultivate this thing. But when quarantine happened, I did make a lot of little music videos and these weird songs, and I put them all up on my Instagram and my YouTube. I probably do the most on Instagram in terms of like my personal output. that I'm not, aside from behind the scenes stuff. But yeah, I've been playing in bands my whole life. I love playing music, and I never really did a lot of comedy stuff with music. But in the last couple of years, I've been trying it while also doing, quote unquote, earnest music.
Yeah.
But it was fun to do those videos because it gave me something to do because we were off from Jokers for a little bit, and I should have kept going, but it was just, I sometimes get a little phasey and I burn out I burn out quick. My motivation sometimes like dips. And then if I get on a streak and then I break that streak, it's hard for me to go back. It's like going to the gym.
Yeah.
You go to the gym, you're like, wow, I'm a gym guy now. I've done it for a week. And you're
Yeah.
like, oh, I
Yeah.
can't go this day. And then you never go back. And
Is
that's me in a nutshell.
is it something, the music, that you would ever think about taking to the stage? So I know
Yeah,
in New York you can just, when things are normal, if you wanted to go downtown and play a comedy show, you could just walk right in and play one. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done a good amount of stand up. I've gotten lucky enough to open for the guys, and when I've gone on the Joker's cruise, I always go and I perform, and I have kind of a set. I used to have just a pure stand up set, and I used to get kind of bored because I did so much improv in my life that like doing the same jokes over and over again was kind
Yeah.
of like draining. I was like, I don't know if this is exactly like just the same joke over and over was tough. I just don't have that in me. But with music stuff, like or playing a song, because I grew up playing in bands where you basically play the songs over and over. You change little things here and there, but there's something about it that just feels more fun and surprising. So I really liked. I had a whole set of songs that I would play guitar on, and sometimes I'd play like a track that goes along with it, some weird songs, and so that's where some of those songs that I started to do on my Instagram and YouTube. That's where they came from. Is those live sets. I was going to do a whole, before quarantine, I just remember I was going to do a whole live show called like Casey Jost Jukebox, where the audience, like you see like almost a jukebox on the screen, and the audience picks whatever song they want, having not know what it means. It's just the title. And then
Yeah,
I
that's
would
a good
perform
idea.
it. So every night it'd be a little different. I could put new songs in if I wrote them. And, but we had, I was going to do that show live at a theater out here. And then I stopped obviously, but
It
yeah,
puts a more fun dynamic, I think, on comedy as well.
yeah, it's fun. I
I
love, I love to do it.
I done a little bit of stand-up comedy when I was in college as a dare and a kind of a bet. But then I
Fun.
ended up doing maybe 20 shows in Ireland.
That's great.
Yeah, but then I just said, "Oh, fuck it, it's not for me." I was like, I had a problem remembering the stuff, like, so I had to write down, say, I have a sheet here, 7 bullet points,
Yeah,
and I needed to bring that with me just in case.
that's
And
okay.
I
You're allowed.
Yeah, and then I was nervous and I'd like to have a beer, but I couldn't have a beer because I thought, right, if I have a beer, I could just forget everything. So I found it really
Stressful.
nerve-wracking, really
Yeah,
nerve-wracking.
that gets stressful. I mean, I would always love, like, sometimes I would write out a set and then start it, but then if something happened in the audience, I would love to just riff on that and see what the
Yeah,
audience was giving, a little crowd work, and then I always go back to the set. So there's a time I'm always like I want to go back. I saw a comedy show recently, which is crazy.
oh,
My friend Kim Congdon, who's a great stand-up, she was performing at a place right down the block, so I had no excuse. I hadn't seen her in a year, and it was down the block, so I went, and it was great. It was great to see stand-up again. It's like because being a performer and seeing so much stand-up, you get tired of it, and you don't want to sit through a whole show. But after a year and a half of not seeing comedy, oh my god, it's like I felt high. I was like
yeah,
watching this and like laughing, and these premises were coming at me that I haven't heard. And I'm not like I didn't watch a ton of stand up specials this year. I watched a lot of dramas on TV, so I was really like I want to see stand up, and it felt good to see it again.
yeah. It's there's been no stand-up, no music, no nothing over here since last March.
Yeah.
Uh, Everything is still closed here. Pubs, hairdressers, non-essential shops. The only thing really open here at the moment is the grocery stores.
Wow. How's the
So over
vaccine?
the
Do they have the vaccine rollout going?
Yeah, but they've started it in January, but there's only 10% of the population done so far, so it's very, very
Wow.
slow. Yeah.
Interesting. Any reason why, or is it people don't want to take it?
It seems to be a lack of supply coming into the country, so it's from the government and whoever else is in charge, I think, is the
Oh
problem.
my god.
But over the next few weeks, they're starting to open restaurants and pubs outdoors,
Oh,
But
good.
as I said to you, in Ireland, outdoors is not the best option, really. Even now, we're in May now, and there was hailstones today, so
Wow.
it's hard to know.
Yeah, we have these, like in my neighborhood, they made these like great outdoor like pods basically.
Yeah,
So there's separation, but you're still inside and they put heat lamps on top and it really made a huge difference. We didn't go too much because you're also like you want to save some money and stuff, but I did want to support some of my favorite restaurants. So it was nice to have that option. And apparently those are now grandfathered in. So they'll stay there. So
yeah,
all these restaurants that had a hard year just doubled their capacity or added to their capacity so they can maybe turn more tables, which is nice.
yeah. And in terms of New York, where you're living, was it a lot quieter this year, like than ever before?
A little bit, yeah, definitely in certain parts. I'm in Brooklyn now, and
Yeah,
I grew up in Staten Island, but I'm in Brooklyn now, and my neighborhood has been pretty busy.
yeah,
It's a neighborhood that is very fun and cool, and it's outside of the city. And I got a dog this year, so I got to see more. You just start to live in the dog version of your neighborhood, where
yeah.
you have all these like dogs and people who own these dogs. So it makes you more social, which is what I needed.
Mhm.
But then it was yeah, I had friends that lived in New York, and certain areas were like ghost towns apparently.
Yeah,
And I guess a lot of people like went to their summer homes or even just moved out. But I've been hearing that there are more people moving to New York now than had left. So,
really.
I mean, you get a lot of people moving back or just going back to maybe they kept it or their homes. Or I have friends that did this. They moved out and like stayed with their parents for a year. Like they moved back home, stayed with their parents for as long as they could, save money on rent because they weren't working or whatever.
Yeah, of course.
Or they were working from home, and then they were like, let's just save rent. Like, why not? And now they're moving back. So there's a
Mhm.
lot of people doing that. And then there's also just the new crop of people that maybe graduated college or just were going to move anyway. So there's a whole influx of people coming in. So I hope that they could get some good apartments while like the rent has come down a little bit. There's not, I don't mind, hearing that rent is a little lower.
Yeah,
It's good for the city.
it's a good incentive to get people back in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what can we expect from yourself in the future then, apart from getting the guitar and going down to stand-up comedy?
Yeah, I don't know. I should. I have a new, one of those Ernest. I was saying Ernest records.
Yeah.
I have a new one of those coming out. It's got like 10 songs on it, and then I've been working with a friend of mine to do some other music projects. That's under my name, Casey Jost. I have a couple solo records. There's also like those songs I mentioned from Instagram. Those are on streaming, like all that stuff's on streaming sites. Sorry, a motorcycle went by.
Yeah,
Everyone's
I
having
could hear
fun out
that.
here. Yeah, I'm not in the before I did a podcast the other day and an ice cream truck went by. It's like you could hear everything. But yeah, otherwise I'm just kind of working on you know shows, just trying to work on other like in between Jokers gigs, trying to work on some other shows. So I'm just trying to stay busy,
Yeah.
stay creative. This summer is gonna be. I hope it's gonna be a lot of fun. See my friends I haven't seen.
Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah, I think things are we're finally starting to see that light at the end of the tunnel, I think, all around the world at the moment, which is great.
Yeah, it's nice. And you just got a
Yeah.
puppy too.
Yeah. Yeah. He's asleep.
That's the best feeling.
Yeah. He's asleep. The baby's asleep. Life is good.
That's nice, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my dog's probably asleep too. I took her on a huge walk just but like leading up to this. And I think
Yeah.
she's gonna be exhausted.
This puppy is only 8 weeks old, so he's not quite ready for the long walks yet, but he will
Oh
be
no.
soon.
That's great. Yeah.
Man, it was great to chat to you today, and thanks a million for your time.
Oh, this is a pleasure. It was so nice to talk to you, man.
Yeah, it was a great show.
Yeah, let me know anytime you want me on, I'll come back. This is great.
Yeah, we'll get you back on. We'll talk more wrestling.
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah, we a severe lack of that. We'll do it next time.
Yeah, a full wrestling show.
Love it. Wait, real
Cheers,
quick.
man.
What's your favorite
Yeah,
wrestler?
my favorite wrestler ever,
Yeah.
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh,
What about
that's
yourself?
a good one. I think it's Scott Hall.
Oh, that's really unusual, but I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Razor Ramon has always been since from childhood and in like the WCW days. And yeah, I've always loved Scott Hall.
yeah. His son is coming on the podcast at some point. I was in contact with him there a while ago, so
That's awesome.
He was wrestling over in Japan there. I'm not sure if he is at the moment. I don't think there's wrestling going on there at the moment, but hopefully he can hit the heights that his dad did.
Yeah. I mean, his dad. Yeah, his dad is so cool.
Yeah,
All right. Well, that's. I'm glad. I got to. We got a little bit more wrestling in.
yeah. Next time, full wrestling.
Yeah.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.